All right, Shalom. First and foremost, want to give all praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, great millstone, that taught me this truth. And Shalom to the the hopeful elect of the tabernacle of David that is being rebuilt in these latter days. And then Shalom to the body of believers, the remnant that was also prophesied to return in these latter days. All right. The remnant of the nation of Israel, of course. All right. So, briefly in this lesson, just wanted to get into some news and prophecy. As we can see, things are happening on the planet Earth. All right. As we get closer to the last few major prophecies that John the Revelator was revealed in the book of Revelation, the MOTB, the mark, the charagma, the plagues that the Lord has prepared, World War III, all these things are on the horizon. Jacob's trouble is another one, but as we get closer and closer, there are, various different prophecies that are taking place, and are going to continue to take place over the dispensation of time. But I mean, man, we're right there. All right, we're right there. And if your pastor, if your religious leader, or whoever you look for guidance, from, if that individual is not going in and out of these prophecies on a regular, consistent basis, then that person is a false prophet. Right? That person is a false prophet, and they are the devil. They are a devil. All right, which just means a deceiver. All right, which brings me to this first article going into the Pope. All right, because when you consider the Pope, according to the scriptures, when in Revelations, when it talks about that false prophet, all right, that false prophet is, the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope. All right, which is really just a criminal organization, comprised of witches and warlocks. All right, masquerading as, religious leaders. That's all it is. It is completely corrupt, completely wicked. All right, and they are, pagans. All right, they're polytheist, as it's called. All right, and they're just masquerading, you know, as people that serve, the true and living power. All right, but they are liars, they are deceivers. Right, and that's why the scriptures call them the false prophet. You know, and to this day, there's not an uproar for what these people have done on the planet Earth. All the pedophile rings, um, all the things that they've been doing behind the scenes, the things that they funded. Um, there's no uproar. There's no protest going on. All right, everything is just all good and dandy. All right, when it comes to the Pope, and the Catholic Church, but when it comes to the true men of the Lord, all right, so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American men, when it comes to them prophesying, all right, out on the street corners, that's a problem with you people. All right, that's the problem. That's what you people are upset about, which says a lot about the character, of people out here. All right, but that's neither here or there. Let me get right into this article. It says Pope Francis, it's on foxnews.com. And the reason that I wanted to get into this article is just because, you can go into the history on the Roman Catholic Church, all right, which technically, Peter, Yahushua, first and foremost, is the head of the church, but like it reads in Matthew, the 16th chapter, I actually have that pulled, so let me just get into that. It says, Matthew 16 and 18, this is Yahushua talking to Peter. It says, and Yahushua answered and said unto him, blessed art thou, Simon Borjana, for flesh and blood have not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. All right. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock will I build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. All right. So, technically Peter, is was given, those keys to the kingdom of heaven, all right, with Yahushua being that door. All right. But ultimately, the church, when you go into Acts and the building of the church, all right, ultimately as time went on, in the Roman Empire, um, the church fathers, the men that even um, were followers of, Yahushai and the apostles, as time went on, obviously it was infiltrated, all right, and you started having wicked Jakes and wicked Edomites, way later on, during the time of the Renaissance, you know, infiltrate, all right, the Catholic Church, all right, and they have been perpetuating, you know, and propagating, um, wickedness, idol worship, the Trinity doctrine, which goes back to Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz, all right, which goes back to, the Egyptian deities. All right, it's all the same exact idolatry and wickedness, just packaged differently. You know, so when it comes to these people going around the planet Earth, you know, the things that they push and they promote, all right, ultimately, are just the words of the beast. All right, are just the words of Satan, really. All right, and then they don't. It's not the things that they say don't line up with scripture. All right, and that's why I wanted to bring out this first article. All right, it says Pope Francis warns young people not to be tempted by consumerist sirens. All right, but as we read, you'll begin to see the false doctrine. It says Pope Francis ended his visit to Greece Monday by encouraging its young people to follow their dreams and not be tempted by the consumerist sirens of today that promise easy pleasures. All right. And, not being tempted by, consumerist sirens or, not indulging as much in consumerism, isn't necessarily a bad thing. But where in the scriptures are we encouraged to just follow our dreams? Especially when, the system, the world system that is set up with Babylon the Great being that, main stage, this place is going to be completely destroyed. All right. This way of life is going to be completely destroyed. So why the hell would you be telling people to follow their dreams? All right. When most people's dreams, all right, are strictly based upon, the American dream. All right. They're just different versions of, Babylonian prosperity. All right. American prosperity, you know, going to college. All right. Getting a good job, you know. So, it's complete, it's madness. So let me keep going down to the bottom. I'm not going to read all this, you know, but I just wanted to talk about. I just wanted to bring out a point that he said, and then I'm gonna go to the next article. Um, it says, and this is a quote from him. It says, "The meaning of life is not found by staying on the beach waiting for the wind to bring something new. Salvation lies in the open sea and setting sail in the quest, in the pursuit of dreams, real dreams. Those we pursue with open eyes, those that involve effort, struggles, headwinds, and sudden storms," he said. So don't be paralyzed by fear. Dream big and dream together. All right. So we have the Pope, the head of the church, who claiming to be the representative of the Most High on earth. All right. We have him pushing, you know, following your dreams and not fearing Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, not fearing the Lord. All right, this shit is crazy. I mean, people, and it's ultimately, it's the Lord working through these devils, all right, to keep people from finding the truth. All right, because the Lord didn't come to save everybody, and the Lord is not going to save everybody. Matter of fact, the scriptures tell us that the Lord is going to destroy and kill a lot of people. All right, so why isn't this what the Pope? Why isn't he telling people this? Why isn't he going into the prophecies and breaking down Jeremiah 50 and 51? Why isn't he breaking down Revelations the 11th chapter, Revelations the 18th chapter, 16th chapter? Why aren't they going into these things? All right. Why are they telling people to follow their dreams? All right. The scriptures and also the scriptures tell us fear. Fear is the first step in being accepted by the Lord. All right. Fear, and that's the problem. That's something that's lacking, you know, significantly in the world that we live in. There is no fear, there's no reverence for the creator of all things. All right, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the Heavenly Father, through his only begotten Son. All right, there's no reverence for that. There's no reverence for him. There's no reverence for the creation. All right, and here we have it, you know, thousands of years later, the biggest religious organization on the planet Earth pushing this bullshit, which is in opposition to the scriptures. All right, so this is Sirach 34. It says, "The hopes of a man void of understanding are vain and false, and dreams lift up fools. Whoso regardeth dreams is like him that catcheth at a shadow and followeth after the wind." And I'm going to skip down to verse 7. It says, "For dreams have deceived many, and they have failed that put their trust in them." All right. And that speaks for itself. The American dream, the life that you people planned on living here, all right, in America, all right, and in these other first world countries that are also going to experience the judgment of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, all right, your dreams are vanity at the end of the day, all right, unless your dreams consist of the kingdom, all right, and the righteousness of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, then your dreams are they're vanity, like the scriptures say. It's a shadow at the end of the day. It's a waste of your time. All right. The only thing that matters at this point is getting in line with the will and with the word of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Anything else outside of that, is really a waste of your damn time. All right. So let me keep going. It says Francis is returning to the Vatican with some important pre-Christmas events on his agenda. All right, which we already know Christmas is idolatry. All right, Christmas goes back to Nimrod. All right, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but here we have it. We have the Vatican pushing these things, pushing these events, pushing these lies. All right, and it doesn't take a lot of research to go into this. All it takes is a couple. All it takes is really a Google search, and maybe you clicking on a couple different links. But this information is out there. All right, and the scriptures even talk about knowledge being increased in these latter days. All right, so you people aren't going to have any excuse when Yahweh Shem Shai opens up the judgment. But let me keep reading. It says Francis is returning to the Vatican with some important pre-Christmas events on his agenda. A scheduled meeting with the members of a French commission that investigated sexual abuse in the French Catholic Church, a scheduled meeting with Canadian Indigenous people seeking a papal apology for abuses at Catholic run residential schools, and Francis' own 85th birthday on December 17th. All right. And that, touched on a lot of things, the sexual abuse. That's something that you would think would be talked about more, you know, scheduled meeting with the Canadian Indigenous people. Yep. That residential school history, in the Americas. you know, is a dark history. All right, but here we have it. We still have Jake, you know, seeking, you know, an apology from these devils, man. If you're in the right spirit, you wouldn't really give a damn about an apology, man. Um, you wouldn't give a damn about an apology, right? Apology is just words, man. Ultimately, we are seeking the justice and the judgment of Yahweh Shem Shai, all right, which will manifest itself in the taking down, of these different kingdoms, all right, and ultimately, the kings being put in chains, all right, and the scriptures tell us that, the scriptures give us that picture, all right. So let me actually get that real quick. This is Psalms 149. It says, let the high praises of God be in their mouth, and and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people. All right, that's what the true men of the Lord are seeking. Okay, verse 8 says, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron. All right, Revelations 13 and 9. All right, he who leadeth in captivity shall go into captivity. All right, verse 9, it says, to execute judgment, or to execute upon them the judgment written. All right, this judgment is written. It is the word. It has already been sanctioned. All right, so anybody else who has hope and dreams for something else outside of what is written, you're going against the will of Yahweh Shem Shai at the end of the day. Verse 9, it says, to execute upon them the judgment written, this honor have all his saints. Praise ye the Lord. All right, let me read that last part again. One more time. It says, to execute upon them the judgment written, this honor have all his saints. All right, the saints, all right, who are Israelites, all right, so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Americans, all right, ultimately the elect, all right, underneath Yahweh Shai and King David, we're going to have, Lord willing, we are those men, we're going to have the actual opportunity to, all right, bind our oppressors with chains, man. That's what people don't really want to talk about. That's what Christian church doesn't want to talk about. All right, but all these things are written. All right. So that's all I wanted on that first article. Let me go to this next article. All right, this next article is going into Russia and India. Um, it's on AP News. I think it came out yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. It says India hosts Putin as it balances ties with Russia. All right. India hosts Putin as it balances ties with Russia. And I'm just going to read points. I'm going to bring out some points. If I remember, I'm going to leave the links in the description box, Lord will. It says Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday to discuss defense and trade relations as India attempts to balance its ties with the United States. The agenda for the annual summit included political and defense issues, according to India's External Affairs Ministries. India's Foreign Secretary Harsh Vardhan Shringla said the talks were productive and that the two countries signed multiple agreements. The meeting between Modi and Putin in New Delhi came hours after the defense and foreign ministers of the two countries held a strategic dialogue to discuss reinforcing ties between India and Russia. The two countries also signed a slew of bilateral defense agreements, including India's procurement of more than 600,000 assault rifles from Russia. India's defense ministry called it a landmark deal that would replace a locally made rifle with modern weapon, ending the long quest for its army's needs. All right. The two countries also signed an agreement to extend their military technology cooperation for the next decade. All right. So, according to this article and according to prophecy, all right, we know that, the Medes, all right, Russia, Gog and Magog, all right, ultimately the Lord is going to put the spirit on them ultimately to start, you know, coming against, NATO and the EU and Babylon the Great. All right. And we already have the situation going all right, on the Ukrainian border, all right, Belarus, Eastern Europe, all right. We already have, all right, things taking place in Eastern Europe, all right, on the border of, these countries that are near the Russian border. All right. So right now we basically see, in these articles, are scratching the surface. Who really knows what's going on behind the scenes? All right, they wouldn't they wouldn't advertise, you know, what they were really doing. All right, well, what we're seeing is, is scratching the surface. You know, but what we see is Russia, you know, beginning to make moves on the planet Earth. All right, strategic moves. All right, and this article goes into that. You know, so let me get Isaiah 13-17 real quick. It says, "Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them." All right, and this is in Isaiah the 13th chapter is going into, the destruction of Babylon. All right, Babylon the Great, not ancient Babylon, Babylon the Great. It says, "Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it." All right, and when you click on that word, when you click on that, stir up, it says, I war, to awake, raise, arise. All right, to rouse oneself, awake, awaken, incite. All right, and we see we see Russia rising up, right? All right, we see Russia telling NATO, telling Babylon the Great, that if they attempt to admit Ukraine into the NATO, all right, that is going to basically cause a war. All right, that is basically going to cause a war because Ukraine is directly bordered or is directly on the border of Russia. All right. And if NATO were to actually admit Ukraine, they would be able to set up military systems and missile systems specifically that would be able to reach Moscow, all right, the capital of Russia, in about 5 minutes. And you can look this up. But Russia is not playing, all right, when it comes to Ukraine. All right. And this is all stuff that's taking place right now. So also, this article is going into, you know, different moves that Russia is making on a global, level. So this is definitely something to keep an eye on. Let me skip down. It says India's acquisition of Russia's S-400 missile systems, which it considers to be critical in countering China, could prove to be an irritant to Indo-US ties. All right, let me read that again. It says India's acquisition of Russian S-400 missile systems, which it considers to be critical in countering China, could prove to be an irritant in Indo-US ties. The S-400 is a sophisticated surface-to-air defense system. Once acquired, it is expected to give India strategic deterrence against rivals China and Pakistan. The missile system deal with Moscow, however, put India at risk of US sanctions. Washington has asked its partners to stay away from Russian military equipment to avoid possible sanctions under the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. All right. So we're going to see, how NATO and the US, all right, how the beast, all right, we're going to see how the beast reacts, all right, to this move by Russia, all right, to this move by India. All right, because we know that World War III is right on the horizon. All right, so we are literally witnessing, all right, these nations, making moves, man. All right, let me get another precept. This is Jeremiah 51:25. It says, "Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord, which destroyeth all the earth." All right, and that destroying mountain is Babylon the Great. All right, Babylon the Great and these NATO nations, all right, that have made an alliance, made a covenant, all right, with Babylon the Great, and really Esau, all right, really Esau Edom, who's at the forefront of all this. It says, "And I will stretch out my hand upon thee and roll thee down from the rocks and will make thee a burnt mountain," right? When the Lord, destroys this place with thermonuclear destruction, all right, in the second death, the lake of fire. It says, "And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith the Lord." Right. So when the Lord destroys this place, all right, nobody is going to be trying to, you know, replicate this system. Nobody's going to be trying to represent or replicate, this way of life ever again, right? The Lord is going to make an example out of this place, and that's why it's compared to the destruction of Sodom and Egypt, or the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, excuse me. Verse 27, it says, "Set ye up a standard in the land, blow the trumpet among the nations, prepare the nations against her, call together, or call together against her the kingdoms of Arat," all right, which is in when you go to when you click on that word Arat, it's Eastern Turkey. Um, it says, "Call together against her the kingdoms of Arat, Mini, and Ashkenaz. Appoint a captain against her. Cause the horses to come up as the rough caterpillars." All right, and here's the point in verse 28. It says, "Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes," all right, which is Russia. All right, Putin. All right, and we see these nations preparing for something. All right, and we know that to be World War III. All right, and then ultimately the Battle of Armageddon. All right, Armageddon, the mountain of troops. All right, it says, "Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes, the captains thereof, and all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his dominion. And the land shall tremble and sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon desolate without an inhabitant." All right, and that is what's coming to Babylon the Great. You know, so Russia is making moves on the earth, man, and it's beautiful to see because ultimately this is prophecy being fulfilled. You know, so let me go to the next article. I only had one more. Thought this was interesting. It says three tech giants control half of advertising outside China. Alphabet, Meta, and Amazon have doubled their share of ad revenues in the past 5 years, industry estimates. All right. It says three tech giants, excuse me, this article is on the Financial Times. It says three tech giants control more than half the global advertising market outside China as the pandemic accelerates the industry's digital transformation and the decline of traditional media. All right. So, this article is really just going into, and what are the reason I wanted to get into this article is just because, it's a testament to the power, all right, that these mega corporations have, all right, the influence, all right, that they have, all right, because not only do we already know they control the media, the mainstream media, the alternative media, essentially all forms of media that we have are controlled, all right, by these mega corporations. But on the flip side of that, even all the advertising, all the ideas and the products that our minds are subjected to, all right, our enemy, all right, the Satan, these witches and warlocks, they have control of all these things. And this article just really goes into that, and I thought it was interesting. Um, Let me keep going. I'm just going to grab a couple points. It says the report published on Monday showed that the global ad industry overall, excluding U.S. political advertisements, all right, so this isn't even, all right, the total turnover or the total, money that they're generating. It says was set to generate 763 billion in revenues in 2021. All right, 763 billion in revenues in 1 year. All right, in 1 year. All right, and niggas still think that $100 million is a lot of money. And comparatively speaking, to the average working, everyday Joe. All right, it's a lot of money. All right, but we're talking about, you know, when you add in the political advertising, we're probably talking about, a little, under $1 trillion annually, all right, that these companies are generating. All right, that is a ridiculous amount of money. All right. It says, um, and another point I wanted to make on this is because obviously we see the digitization of everything. All right, media, money, life and existence as we know it. All right, the metaverse. All right, everything is going digital. Nothing is going to be tangible. All right, which we know, which is why Revelations 13 to 16, the MOTB, all right, is really the centerpiece of it all. All right, it is primary. It is very crucial to all of this. You know, it says digital is on track to account for almost 2/3 of global ad revenues this year, compared with a little more than a quarter in 2014. Between 80 and 90% of the digital ad market outside of China is controlled by Alphabet, Meta, Amazon, Group M estimates. All right, 80 and 90%. All right, which is they're probably lowballing. They're basically saying that these three companies control all of the world's digital advertising. All right, which is insane. All right, it is insane. All right, these corporations, these mega corporations, these tech giants, along with big pharma, all right, these biotech companies, these oil, natural gas companies, all right, all these corporations have infiltrated, all right, the known world. They've infiltrated a majority of the world's, governments. All right, in one way or another. All right, either they're completely infiltrated and control it, or they are controlling it. All right, by you know another means. All right, by you know um these different organizations. Babylon the Great and NATO is a great example. All right, through the sanctions. All right, when you've infiltrated, these different governments, you have the power of the government. All right, and like the elders always go into, that word government just means mind control when you even break it down. You know, so you have basically a few hands controlling the minds and the masses of the people. All right, and that's why it's so important to be rooted in these scriptures, and to be washing your mind, to be brainwashed by the truth. All right, by this living water. It is absolutely necessary. You know, with all the filth and all the pollutant, that we're exposed to on a daily basis. Which leads me to my next precept, actually. Um, this is Proverbs 4:23. It says, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." All right. And when you go to that word keep, it says natazar. It says preserve, watchman. All right. To guard, to watch, to keep. So we have to be mindful and be, watchful over the different things that we're, exposed to. All right. It's very important, because like as this article is going into, um, it's very evil and wicked, hands um that run all of this. All right. Job 9:24, for the earth was given into the hands of the wicked. All right. Being on the internet, being on these different platforms, you're subjected to all types of witchcraft, all right, because ultimately all these things are just mediums, all right, the media, all right, and these advertisements, all right. So that's basically all I wanted to get on that. um, Let me just go into this word advertise real quick. On etymology online, it says from the Latin advertir, to direct one's attention, give heed, literally to turn toward. All right. It says the transitive sense of give notice to others, inform, warn, make clear, or manifest. All right. Let me read that first one again. It says to direct one's attention, to give heed, literally to turn toward. All right. So when you consider, the powers to be, their manipulation of the mainstream media, all right, their manipulation of information, all right, and then also, these advertisements, all these things are working together, all right, to turn the people's minds toward, accepting the MOTB, all right, the Revelations 13 and 16, no man can buy or sell, all right, without that thing, man. That's what we're seeing. You know, we're seeing these things being utilized, all right. The Staples Center in New York renamed, being renamed to crypto.com. All right, you're starting to see, crypto just everywhere. I mean, everybody's talking about it, especially with inflation going crazy right now. Um, we see the powers of the beat, directing everybody consciously and subconsciously towards, the NWO. All right, that's why we got to be rooted in this word and in these prophecies, you know. So with that, I'll say shalom.